There's this guy. He's got all the money, all the women, and he just can't stop winning. For many years, that guy's name was Tom Brady, but it looks like now there could be the next Tom Brady. Well, that may be premature. Patrick Mahomes is coming off of a Super Bowl championship season, and the Kansas City Chiefs returned most of their players, and there's no reason to believe why they couldn't contend for it again. The Las Vegas Raiders, which will now be called them, have a lot of talent on their team, but there's a lot of questions. Where's Derek Carr when it matters the most? And some questions on defense. Great coaching, but it didn't look like that last year. The Chargers have some new names. Tyrod Taylor starting the season. Yeah, that will last about 3 weeks. Justin Herbert is the franchise quarterback for them. The Chargers made some upgrades, but I wouldn't expect too much. And the Denver Broncos are the team that made a lot of offensive upgrades and offseason signings. The question is how good is Drew Locke really during a full season? The AFC West preview and predictions right here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to the final stop of the AFC Conference, and that is the AFC West. Today we're going to preview the AFC West. We're going to talk about anything and everything involving 4 teams. The Kansas City Chiefs coming off of a Super Bowl victory. The LA Chargers hoping that they get health and some questions answered at quarterback going into the season. The Las Vegas Raiders, again, working on their defense, really providing. Does Derek Carr finally going to step up when it matters the most? And last but not least, the Denver Broncos, which honestly are a team that a lot of people are sleeping on. Some of you may say Drew Locke is not the real deal or not, but this team had a fantastic offseason. They drafted well, and they made some key additions to their defense. We're going to talk about all 4 of these teams. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, subscribe. We got the other AFC previews. We did the AFC East. We talked about how Buffalo has no weaknesses, and they're going to be completely dominant in this upcoming season. We talked about the AFC North, how the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be looking for health from Ben Roethlisberger, but you should expect the Baltimore Ravens to win that division as well. The AFC South, the Titans coming off of a miracle, hungry upstart season. 1 game short from the Super Bowl, how the Titans should win that division, and Phillip Rivers joins it as well. And here we have arrived in the AFC West. I do not have any questions about who's going to win this division, but I do have questions about who plays right behind them. The first team we're going to talk about is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are coming off of a Super Bowl season, so in theory, there's no team that has had more success and should look for more success in 2020. The Kansas City Chiefs have some questions, but for the most part, this team made some moves, and they have a very good team. And a lot of times, we look at teams as how strong their offense is. This Kansas City Chiefs defense is very underrated. Their defense, all it has to be is good because their offense is so strong. One of the problems last year for teams is that they couldn't keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs because the Kansas City Chiefs are one of those teams where they could start off very slow and then strike you hard and fast from out of nowhere. It's exactly what happened in the divisional game against Houston. They were down 24-0 and one of the worst fourth quarters I've ever seen in an NFL football game, and they struck and they finished with 51 points. It's the same thing or something similar did happen in the championship game. Not as similar. They were 10-zip. They were shut out in the first quarter against the Tennessee Titans. And what do? They strike hard and fast in the second half, and they do get the win as well. And last but not least, the Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers, who had the Kansas City Chiefs very quiet in the first half. And then the second half came late in the fourth quarter, and Mahomes struck his magic. And that's where we're going to lead off. Quarterbacks for the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is coming off of a Super Bowl win. There's nobody hotter than Patrick Mahomes right now. Chad Henne will be a backup, but do not expect to see him have any playing time, if any, regards to if Mahomes were to get hurt. That will be the only way. There's absolutely no competition. The Kansas City Chiefs gave Patrick Mahomes, I believe it is a 12-year, $500 million contract. That's right. Patrick Mahomes is going to be cashing out on $500 million, expecting an average of $50 million per season. Patrick Mahomes flashes Tom Brady-like potential. I would avoid the comparisons to Tom Brady, but I can tell you this right now, Patrick Mahomes is very special. His first season resulted in, his first full season that is, resulted in a championship, AFC championship loss to Tom Brady, and the very next season, the team went on and won the Super Bowl. There's no reason to believe why they can't do something similar this coming season. Let's hope that if Patrick Mahomes does stay healthy, this team will be very good intact. Now, running backs, they had a bit of a curveball a few weeks ago, I believe, and that is when their good running back, Damian Williams, has opted out of the season. Damian Williams is opting out of the season and will cash what is a $150,000 check, which I believe is given to the NFL players that choose to opt out of the NFL season due to COVID-19. Damian Williams was a very good running back. I don't know if you would put him in the elite category, but he was a good running back last year, and now the Kansas City Chiefs will be without this man. However, they did draft Clyde Edwards as a running back in the draft, and he's one of those running backs coming from LSU that the team thinks can have potential. Clyde Edwards, with the opting out of Damian Williams, is now going to be the lead running back, and he's going to be he was looking at being a backup. Obviously, with Damian Williams opting out of the season, it hurts their run game a little. But we're going to have to see. This Kansas City Chiefs pass game is so strong that even if their run game took a hit, I think they will still be okay. But it is very important. This team does not want to be pass only, because there will only be a matter of time before these teams start to break down and get the Kansas City Chiefs. Their strongest category on the team is wide receivers. Now, a lot of people say there's a lot of good receiving cores in the NFL, and with all respect, there is, but this Kansas City offense receiving core is absolutely lethal, not because they're good receivers, but because they're so fast. It wears on someone having to guard the fastest player in the NFL, which is obviously Tyreek Hill. This team has Nicole Hardman, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, they do have Travis Kelce. Hardman, Watkins, Cole, Robinson, and even the fastest Tyreek Hill, who is absolutely impossible to catch on his feet. And to finish it off, the team has what I believe to be the best tight end in football, Travis Kelce. This team's wide receiving core is the best in the NFL. They have one of the best tight ends. They have the best tight end. They have two good receivers, and Tyreek Hill speaks for himself. This wide receiving core is so fast and explosive. They had some injury problems last year, but nothing too crazy. This Kansas City Chiefs team offense is going to come back, and it's going to be just as good as it was, if not better than last year. Their offensive line looks even better. Most players return. The unit looks better. Fisher's off injury. Schwartz is elite. Mitchell Schwartz. Ryder, Tardif, and Willie play the guards and tackles position on this offensive line. Defensive line, there was a little bit of a rockiness to their defensive line last year. Chris Jones is one of the league's best. He did have some injuries and was questionable late in the season for the playoffs, but he did come in, and they did a good job of limiting Derrick Henry. Nanati showed upside. Frank Clark came through when the playoffs came. He did have a rocky season. The team also added Taco Charlton to their defensive line as well. Linebackers. Now, the linebackers is a little bit of a question mark. Hitchens rebounded. He had an awful first season on Kansas City. Wilson played well aside him. Gay Jr. and Neiman are expected to battle for the third linebacker spot on Kansas City. Their linebackers could be a bit of a question mark coming into this season, and their secondary had a massive breakout season, and that was with the addition of Tyrann Mathieu, who was always, in my eyes, a good safety, but became one of the league's, if not the best safety this coming season. It's a huge improvement for their secondary. It was a big season for Ward. Breeland does come back. However, Breeland does have some behavioral questions, off-the-field problems as well. They're going to look for Bashaud Breeland to have a much better behavioral status in 2020. Tyrann Mathieu developed into the best safety in the league. Sorensen replaced Thornhill come the playoff time when Thornhill was hurt, and he did very, very well. So there could be some competition here at safety. But for the most part, Tyrann Mathieu leads the safety and leads this secondary unit. The secondary unit is good. And that's one of the things I talk about with the Kansas City Chiefs, is that their defense is overshadowed by how great their offense is. There are some questions with the Chiefs' pass rush, not with Chris Jones and Frank Clark, but some of the other players around them. I expect this Kansas City Chiefs team to have a fantastic year regarding health. Some questions on defense, but nothing too major. I would expect a 12-4 season for Kansas City if all comes right. 13-3 would not surprise me either. And that does have some questions, particularly some on offense. The Las Vegas Raiders, first year as the Las Vegas Raiders, are moving out of their Oakland Coliseum. Now, I don't know if they're playing in Vegas exactly. Someone would have to brief me in on that, just because of where COVID delayed some construction. I don't know exactly what the Rams and Chargers are planning. For those of you that don't know, the Chargers and Rams did kick off Hard Knocks last week. I did watch episode 1 on YouTube. Very, very good stuff. The Raiders, Derek Carr, where is he when it matters the most? The more the pressure builds, the more Derek Carr folds. When he's on the field and not hurt, from what I'm told, he makes a lot of late decisions that are not good. Late game, 2-minute drill, Derek Carr is not a favorite quarterback. In comes Marcus Mariota. I have a Marcus Mariota jersey. Marcus Mariota showed some flashes of brilliance his first couple of seasons with the Tennessee Titans. But to me, he had never rubbed off as a legit starting quarterback. And that's not disrespect, because I like Mariota. I like the way he carries himself. And he did give us some fun moments along the way. But Marcus Mariota, to me, is not a threat to Derek Carr's starting job. Now, could he get in? I would not be shocked to see Mariota start for the Raiders at some point this season. I don't think it will have to do with poor level of play, but Derek Carr is a very injury-riddled quarterback when it's not. The odds are stacked against him. Late game questions is where this Las Vegas Raiders team is going to have to watch. Running backs. this is one of the stronger positions on the team. We have to talk about Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs had his first season last year as a Oakland Raider. Now, I want to give people a mention here. Some of these are notes, but a lot of this is mental knowledge as well. I'm not just somebody reading off a piece of paper, because you could approach me in public and I could tell you these exact same things. Josh Jacobs was one of the best running backs in the league for his first season. So to me, Josh Jacobs has no competition at running back, and I'm looking forward to see what he does. He was one of the running backs that I don't feel like got enough credit last year. The team did re-sign Richardson to be his backup, pending injury, obviously, or poor play, but Josh Jacobs has this run game locked down. The receivers, though, there are some questions. They like Renfro, Williams. They drafted Ruggs, which could be a good player. They really like Darren Waller at tight end. He's going to be backed up by Jason Witten. Jason Witten could be in for some plays this year for the Vegas Raiders, but I do not expect Jason Witten to really have that great of a season. Darren Waller is a very good tight end. Got to be a little bit more consistent, but I do like Darren Waller at the tight end position for the Raiders. And now we talk about the offensive line. They re-signed Incognito, who was good, Devy as well, Hudson and Jackson. The Raiders' offensive line is not too bad. Their defensive line was, now these are where we get to some of the questions with the Raiders. Their defense had a bit of questions last year. My first question with the Raiders' defense is the underwhelmingness of Clelin Ferrell, who was drafted, I believe, 4th pick last year in the draft by the Raiders. He needs to show improvement, and he needs to show it fast. Max Crosby showed out great. For somebody that's a 4th-round pick, he did pretty good. Nassib's at end. They did sign Collins, Hurst, and Hankins will return at tackles. Outside of what Clelin Ferrell needs to upgrade, the defensive line is not that bad. The linebackers, they did sign Kowalski, which is a good signing. Corey Littlehead as well. Lee, Morrill, and Wilbur return to the linebacker position of the Las Vegas Raiders. Secondary, some questions here. Mullen, Lawson, both at corner. The team drafted 2 corners. They were not looking to give up a lot of big plays, which the Raiders did do some of last year. Jonathan Abraham returns to be a lockdown safety, but the second safety spot for the Las Vegas Raiders is said to be up for grabs going into the 2020 season. Me personally, I think a lot of what happens on this team goes through the quarterback. I think their receiving core is decent. Their run game should be great. I'm more concerned about what happens at quarterback. What do the Raiders do if they start off 0-4? If Derek Carr is underwhelming? What do they do if Mariota comes in and he's even worse? I think those are the questions you need to ask when you're talking in regards to the Las Vegas Raiders. Secondary, they don't know who their second safety is. Some corners. There are some more so defensive questions. I really want to know what happens with quarterbacks, but defensive questions for the Las Vegas Raiders. Some players needing to step up. I don't expect this team to have a bad season. 8-8 wouldn't surprise me. 9-7. Maybe a little bit better. It depends how much faith you have in the Las Vegas Raiders to play consistent throughout the whole season. This team last year was on a roll at one point, and then they completely fell off towards the end of the season. They got annihilated by the Titans, and everything went downhill from there. It all depends on how much faith you put into the Raiders to put up a fully consistent season. Some defensive question marks, but that's what I think it really comes down to. I don't think this Raiders team is going to be bad. I'm just not sold on them. Let's talk about a team that I like, that a lot of people are completely not even batting an eye to. That's the Denver Broncos. Now, the Broncos are coming off of a season where their defense was good, but it wasn't as good as they liked. Joe Flacco was the quarterback for the Broncos, and he was absolutely atrocious. He was so bad that they sent him to the Jets. And this stage in your career, Joe Flacco, I don't really think there's much for Joe Flacco to do left. He was good at one point. This offense last year for the Denver Broncos was, for most of the season, absolutely despicable. There were some flashes at wide receivers. The run game was decent with Lindsey. But my goodness, quarterbacks was a massive problem. With Drew Locke being hurt. And then Drew Locke took over. And this Denver Broncos team did something somewhat similar to what the Titans did when Tannehill took over, and they started to make more plays and win games. How sold are you on Drew Locke? That's up to you. In my honest opinion, I think Locke will have the quarterback position. The backup is Jeff Driscoll. Jeff Driscoll is absolutely atrocious, and he was on the Lions. He could not even earn a backup spot on the Lions. I like Drew Locke, but I'm not going to pull the trigger on him yet. Running backs, this is where it changes a lot. The team signed Melvin Gordon in the offseason. Now, Phillip Lindsay was a good running back. They didn't sign. I don't know why exactly. I have a close friend that's a Broncos fan. He'll tell me in more detail why the team elected to sign. Melvin Gordon. Now, in all honesty, Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, if Gordon's healthy, he should run away with this running back position. But Lindsay's not a bad backup, and I think that they're two different backs, and I think that this run game is going to be interesting to see how it develops. Their receivers, now this is where they got the big promotion. Cortland Sutton was already good for the Denver Broncos. Now they draft Judy, who is fast as shit. Hamilton and Patrick showed promise, and they have Fant, who's very good at tight end. Their wide receiving core should be fun to watch. Their offensive line, they signed Glasgow, right tackle James, left tackle Bowles, but they think that Bowles has been pretty bad. Their offensive line is a little bit of questions. As far as the offense goes, this Denver Broncos offense could be some fantasy points. I wouldn't sleep on it, but again, I don't know how much faith you put into Drew Locke. I think he's a good quarterback, but I'm not going to give him too much benefit of the doubt. Defensive line, big move. The team took Jarrell Casey away from the Tennessee Titans. They signed Jarrell Casey, they re-signed Harris, and Purcell returns as well. The defense, the Broncos in recent years have been noted as, obviously, as a defensive team. The linebacker position is never up for any grabs, so if you're looking to be a linebacker and you get drafted to the Denver Broncos, expect little to no playing time. Bradley Chubb and Von Miller are a lethal duo in terms of what they are capable of on the pass rush side of things. Another thing I want to talk about as well, Todd Davis should get the third spot in the linebacking core, but Bradley Chubb and Von Miller will have no competition in their respective outside positions. And the secondary definitely got a lot better, and they signed A.J. Boy, who is coming from, I believe, Jacksonville. They re-signed Callahan. Simmons was great at safety, and Jackson as well. So this Denver Broncos team made some position calls at defense, and their offense got better. I would look for the Broncos to have a better season. I know a lot of people sleep on this Broncos team. The receiving core looks good. Their run game should be good. Drew Locke, well, we'll have to see. Their defensive line was upgraded. Their linebackers are good. Their secondary's a lot better. This Denver Broncos team, is not getting credit just based on the sole fact that people do not trust Drew Locke. Bad, and it never was bad, but it was very, very injury-riddled, and that's the LA Chargers. This team has had so many injuries, defense injuries, key injuries, Phillip Rivers leaving. The biggest move is Phillip Rivers leaving the Chargers. Their next biggest move is drafting Justin Herbert. This team, I watched the first episode of Hard Knocks. Their idea is that they're going, week one is going to be Tyrod Taylor. Now, I can tell you this very, very, very good. The way Justin Herbert looked on Hard Knocks, I don't think it will be long before he takes the starting spot. The idea is obviously Justin Herbert to be the franchise quarterback for the Chargers. But in all honesty, the team said they're rolling out with Tyrod Taylor week one. Yes, he's got more experience. You can breed Herbert a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be a Miami Dolphins situation where, Tua could potentially be sitting out quite a while for the Dolphins before he gets some time in. But I don't think it will be very long, in all honesty, before Justin Herbert is quarterback at the starting helm for the LA Chargers. I just don't trust Tyrod Taylor. He's a quarterback that is, to me, a quarterback you can substitute, but Tyrod Taylor is not going to bring you no playoffs. He's damn sure ain't bringing you no championship. It's not a quarterback that, he's not horrible. A lot of people say Tyrod Taylor is garbage. I don't think he's horrible. I just don't think that he's that great of a quarterback. Some people will say that that's saying he's horrible. Tyrod Taylor, to me, by the end of September, is either going to get hurt or Herbert's going to take over. Running backs. Austin Eckler got the nod after a breakout season last year. Melvin Gordon, hurt, injured, complaining, bitching about his contract. Meanwhile, Austin Eckler was being one of the best dual backs in the league, catching passes and doing great runs. Austin Eckler should be your starting running back for the LA Chargers. Jackson as well will be the backup. The receiving core, once good, always good. But again, you can say coaching. The Chargers have had so many coaches come through in and out the doors over the last 7-8 years. Keenan Allen is one of the best receivers in the league. Mike Williams is also a great receiver. Patson, Moore, and Reed complete for the third receiving spot. And Hunter Henry is becoming one of the better tight ends in the league, as he will be the unbattled tight end on the receiving core. The offensive line, some questions. They signed Balaga. Turner, Pouncey returns at center after missing most of last season with an injury. Feeney will be left guard, and TV will be the right tackle. Their defensive line is pretty good. They signed Lionel Joseph. Oh, that's one of the key additions to the LA Chargers as well this year. The team signed Linval Joseph, who's coming from Minnesota. Minnesota's always been a good team on defense, and it's been one of the teams that I think is probably the most slept-on team in the NFL. Joey Bosa gets a massive contract, and it's well-deserved. He's one of the best pass rushers in the league. It runs in the family. And they need more from Tillery also on the defensive line. Their linebackers. Now, there are some questions here. Ingram, 3 they like. Nwosu should fit the other spot. They drafted Kenneth Murray, who they are expecting to be the middle linebacker in the upcoming season for the LA Chargers. And Nick Vigil on the other side, who they need a lot of importance from. One of another team, there are a lot of good secondaries in the AFC West. Maybe not the Chargers, but the Chargers do have a very good secondary. They have a big signing. They signed one of the best corners in the league, Chris Harris Jr. He joins Hayward and Desmond King too. Safety core, they have Derwin James at safety, and the team hopes that Jenkins can take the other safety spot. The Chargers have a lot of question marks. They will not make the playoffs this year. And it's not because their team isn't good. It's because they don't have a breeded quarterback. They have some defensive questions. And I don't think this whole defense will be able to stay healthy. This is an interesting division. It's not as many pieces moving as perhaps the NFC South, which is going to be a mission to take notes on. But the AFC West should undoubtedly go to the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't see any reason why the Kansas City Chiefs could not win the NFC West, excuse me, the AFC West. There are other teams in here. I think the Broncos will take second. It's not an awful division. There were some moves made, but Kansas City really doesn't have that much competition in terms for division. So I would expect Kansas City to easily win this division again. But look out for some of these other teams. As always, ladies and gentlemen, keep staying safe. This has been the AFC Conference. We are going to jump it right in to the NFC East next video. And I know there's going to be a lot of controversy going into that one.